Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is replayed on Thursday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, on WBCQ The Planet. You can also pick up this show on Podomatic, Automatic.com. Just punch in Camp Constitution, and not only will you be able to get this show, but many of our shows over the last few years, plus some other recordings. We just uploaded an interview that Lord Moncton and I did on a radio station in Connecticut, Lori and Liberty Show, and that's getting a lot of interest. You can also visit our YouTube channel, where you can see the radio shows that we convert to YouTube video. And also, IPMNation.org every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. That's a Concord, New Hampshire-based online 24-hour video news, etc. And we thank the folks there for making that happen. And anyone else would like to put this show out there, you're welcome to it. Just give us a shout out. Let us know what you're doing so we can promote it. And the show is brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp. And I'm going to be talking about the camp that just ended last week, actually, last Saturday. Ran from August 5th to the 11th at the Lakeside Christian Camp and Conference Center in beautiful Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So anyway, this was the first time we've used this venue, and everyone, some of the people that were used to Toa-Nippie the first day or two didn't quite like it, but they got very used to it. It's always been my opinion that it's the people that make the camp. And it's a beautiful venue. It's probably not as up-to-date with some things as Toa-Nippie, but the scenery is much prettier, and we have some of the things are closer. So within a short time, people said, yeah, let's do it. And we're going to be returning to Lakeside in Pittsfield. We haven't got the dates, but it will be either the last week in July going into August or the first week in August, just the same week as this year. And I have to say that this was the largest turnout we've had in our 10-camp history, which is encouraging, mainly because we changed the venue and the dates, where the camp was held in New Hampshire earlier in July. And usually when you get into August, you run into a lot more conflicts. But we had well over 100 people, either there for the whole week or there for a few days, or came for teacher class or sat in a class, what have you. And all of the classes, the adult level type classes, adult high school level, were videotaped and are available on our YouTube channel. There's a few other things that we haven't put up there yet. One was a clown show by Spunky the Clown. Did an incredible job entertaining the younger people. And an interview I did with a historian at the Battle of Bennington Monument in Bennington, Vermont. That I'm looking for that disc. It was misplaced, but we'll get our hands on it and we'll upload those. But we had an incredible array of speakers, instructors, including Lord Christopher Moncton. He came from the UK just to be at camp, although we did have him speak at other venues. We were able to have other organizations host him or interview him. Radio show interview, as I mentioned earlier, and then he did a cable TV interview, and a couple of Tea Party groups sponsored him in Massachusetts. So he really did a great job, and he loved the camp. He wants to come back next year. He did 2 classes, and then he participated in a sort of a radio interview that was done right at the camp itself with Mrs. Chris Ann Hall. He gave a class on the U.S. Constitution, almost from a European or from an English perspective, which I thought was interesting. And then he gave one on the climate change issue, and he gave us a really an assignment. He co-authored a paper totally refuting climate change, global warming, going back 150 years with Willie Soon and James Morrison and I think some others. And the UN entity, the IPCC, the National Planetary Climate Control, whatever the heck it is, they refused to review it. And this entity is based in Switzerland, so he's asking people to contact the Swiss ambassador here in the United States, so of course, wherever country you may be in. And I have all the information. If you'd like to be part of this project, it should be a fun project to actually get this stuff, hold these people accountable. I don't know the last time someone contacted a Swiss ambassador. Doesn't usually happen very often, unless you're from Switzerland or traveling to Switzerland, but this is a different issue. But what they've done is illegal, and the Swiss government should investigate. So I have a copy of the paper in a PDF, as well as the contact information for the Swiss ambassador and other people that should be involved. So if you want to just contact me through our website, campconstitution.net, or our Facebook page, you can do that, and I'll be able to get that stuff off to you as promptly as possible. Professor Willie Soon returned. He came last year. He was with his family. He brought his family back. His mother-in-law was there as well, and he did a couple of great classes, and he really enjoyed the camp. He's just so excited about it, and he had a lot of fun there. It was good to see. Good to see people be able to have a good time while doing something as important as we're doing. Barbara from Harlem, who was a guest a few weeks ago, a month ago on the show, we were able to kind of squeeze her in. She wasn't part of the regular on the curriculum, but she gave a 10-minute presentation that was very inspiring. She's quite a lady, and that's up on our YouTube channel. Then we had John McManus, the president emeritus of the John Birch Society, gave a class on what is money, and also why we need to get out of the UN. And he's an author of numerous books. We had some of the books available there. And Dr. Duke Pesta of the Freedom Project Education, online K-12 classic education, and Dr. Duke's probably the top expert on the evils of Common Core, perhaps in the world, definitely in the United States. And he gave 2 classes, and he only came in he got in late, like 2 in the morning, taught a class in the morning, then he taught an optional class and had to leave. So hopefully next year we'll get him for the whole week and have him do a class every day. But he gave a class on the culture war and why we're losing and how to win it, and also a really interesting class on C.S. Lewis, the great Christian apologist. And that's, again, all these things are available on our YouTube channel, Camp Constitution. Mrs. Chris Ann Hall came with her family, her husband and son, Colton, and she gave 2 classes, 2 of them that were actually, I think she gave 3 classes, plus a panel discussion with Dave Kopatz. And she gave a couple of brand new classes introduced for the first time. So we're sort of her test project, and went very well. And this is her, I think, 3rd or 4th time at Camp, at least her 3rd time at Camp Constitution. So we love having her. She's very inspirational, does a great job. The kids and the campers love her. And we had a lot of other instructors came in for a class. Pastor Earl Wallace gave a class on the biblical basis of the Bill of Rights and America's Christian heritage. He talked a lot about the Great Revival and what that led to. Probably without the Great Revival that happened in the 1700s, prior to the Revolutionary War, the men and women who stood up against King George III were definitely had the moral courage, something that could not have happened had they not had the strong Christian convictions that most of them did. So again, it was a phenomenal time. We had a number of we have what we call a junior camp, where we have youngsters from 5 to 11. And unfortunately, we didn't videotape the classes except for one show, which we're hoping to get up pretty soon. We did do a few live Facebook videos, so if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see them. Bonnie Wilder, who's a Daughters of the American Revolution, and of course Edith Kraft, who is the one that leads the program. We had about 20 youngsters, and we thought it was great. The young people really enjoying learning history, dressing up in colonial costumes, and learning about the various characters, learning about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, what the Bill of Rights, and our Christian heritage. And they just had a wonderful time. The parents were real excited. And this year we had a lot of families, and it's a family camp, so in some cases the families will have their own room, mom, dad, and the children. In some cases, mom, dad might have their own room, and the children are with a counselor. But however it works out, it's a great formula. We took an optional hike up Mount Greylock. Now that's a pretty good hike but we did a shorter version, like a 2.5-3 miles. and then drove down from the top. And the top is a beautiful panoramic view. You get there's a veterans monument on the very top, and so the campers really enjoyed it. And then Wednesday, we took a field trip to the Battle of Bennington. Oh, I want to mention another instructor all the way from California, Debbie Bacha-Kalupi, who's been a guest on the show, an expert on Agenda 21. So we're really excited that she was able to come out, and she enjoyed herself. And we had a gentleman from California that drove out to our camp, and he wanted to see how we run our camp because he wants to replicate the camp in California or Colorado. And I think there's two ways. Of course, one of our goals was to expand our camp program and have other week-long camps. The challenge is to have some boots on the ground right nearby to promote it, because you really have to promote it year-round. You can't just set a date, sign a contract, send on a few emails, and hope for the best. And I think we kind of learned that with our little weekend camp up in Maine that's scheduled for the middle of September. On the other hand, if people would like to, hey, we'll start our own camp. Now, we can talk about franchising, or we can simply be there. Here's our program. Here's our daily schedule. This is the sort of the worldview where we are a Christian-centered camp, but we're not theologically centered, so we're not sponsored by a particular church or a denomination. We want to be able to think people of goodwill who love our country from various denominations can feel comfortable while you be a Catholic or a Baptist or Seventh-day Adventist, what have you, that they can participate in our camp and and be comfortable about it. And we're very strict about in loco parentis. And we tell our staff that if you come in a Baptist, your child leaves as a Baptist, but a much more informed one. If you come in as a Catholic, you leave as a Catholic, and a much more informed one, et cetera, et cetera. So that's I know that's one of the potential problems that any camp might have of this nature, and we just have to be kind of on guard for that. On the other hand, if a Baptist church wants to adopt our program, and that's fine. This is the guidelines, and this is what we recommend. We do get support from many churches in the area. People send their campers, and we get a family from our church that participates. And so, in fact, the camp, the man who runs the Lakeside camp, it's a Baptist affiliate, and he said that they used to have a family camp, but their attendance was getting lower. So he said he will do what we can to help our camp program. So, from a Baptist point of view, he observed us all week long, and he said we're very low maintenance, and sees that there's no conflict with with what he believes. And we have conservative Catholics who will come, and they'll have the same perspective. So we would love for people around the country who would want to do something like this. We will, speak to you, talk to you about what needs to be done, either under our umbrella or set up your own camp, and we will be there with a few counselors and some staff to help you get it going and get people out and set up the agenda. Even if it doesn't have to be a week-long camp, although I think it's a special for me when you have a week-long camp. You get plenty of time to bond with people, make new friends, and that's really the big part of it too. It's not just sitting there learning stuff, but also making friendships for life and making connections. And that's something you can't put a price tag on. And we always keep our prices low. We are a charitable trust, so we make available. We sometimes will tell families, pay what you can afford, and we'll cover the difference. And thank God we've been able to do that so far in our 10-year history, almost 10 years, 10 camp history anyway. So, so getting back to the camp on, let's see. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Christian flag issue because we had a hearing date Thursday at camp. Anyway, Friday we had a lot of fun with we do a lot of recreational activities at our camp too, wiffle ball, and basketball tournaments and chess tournaments, and there's a game called Gaga which the young people really like. I'm not sure. I see them play it. I can't quite show what the objective is, but they're laughing and have a lot of fun. And it's just a little ball bouncing around in an octagon, and it keeps them busy. And they have tournaments on that. And of course, we have daily run and an optional run and a swim in the morning. And plenty of time in the afternoon to swim and just lie out in the sun and enjoy the beautiful weather there. So so last Thursday, this would have been August 9th, 2 Thursdays ago, we had a hearing on the Christian flag controversy. Some of you who are regular listeners might remember back last year, 2017, it was July, early August, I applied for a permit to raise the Christian flag. And the Christian flag is nothing more than a white field, and the top left, I forget what you call that part. Anyway, it was blue, and the cross is red. And that flag actually doesn't go back that far. It goes back to the 1890s, early 1900s, Coney Island. It was a couple of men collaborated to make this, and it's non-denominational. There's no copyright on it, so I know a lot of denominations have their own flag, but this flag you might see in Baptist churches or other churches. And the goal is to raise the flag. City Hall in Boston has what you call a public access flagpole. And 5 years ago, we raised the Gadsden flag without any difficulty. But this year, we were going to raise the Christian flag, and the purpose of it was to have a little ceremony where we would discuss the Christian contributions to the city of Boston. Of course, we were going to do it in concert with Constitution Day, and also the need for Christians to be part of solving the race problem or racial reconciliation. If the church doesn't do it, who will? Because let's face it, it's all spiritual. The spirit of hatred is spiritual, and it needs to be addressed by the church. And I'm not saying this wishy-washy this smash racism stuff. Just going to appeal to people and unite people, and that's what Christianity does. In fact, it's always been that way. Christianity is one of the most diverse. You get people from every conceivable race and background that are Christians, and that's what needs to be known. Anyway, we were denied the permit based on the separation of church and state. And when I sent out a news release to a local news release to just the media in the greater Boston area, a friend contacted me and suggested I get a hold of Liberty Counsel. And Liberty Counsel is a legal entity that, based in Florida, it has an office in Virginia, in fact, right into the Liberty University, where one of my girls would be going. And they got a hold of me I contacted them on their website, sent them a message, and I think they called me definitely within a day, probably within about 12 hours. And they liked the case, and they took the case pro bono. They sent out a news release to their media contacts around the country, and it made WorldNet Daily, it made AOL, American Online, it made 50 or 60 outlets. We were interviewed by a couple of radio stations, front page of the Boston Herald we've been back in September. And a demand letter was sent to the city, basically saying that we need to be able to raise the flag, and the city's website has to define the flag like they define other flags. You see, the city of Boston has no trouble with the rainbow flag, the transgender flag, the flag of Cuba, the flag of China, the flag of the Dominican Republic, the flag of Portugal, and other flags, but our flag was unconstitutional. It's the same city that's a sanctuary city, and its mayor said that if Roe versus Wade is overturned, the abortion decision, that Boston will be a sanctuary city for abortions, et cetera. So it just shows you that they're very selective when it comes to obeying the Constitution. In fact, the idea of separation of church and state is ludicrous. That's not in the Constitution, and there's no way that raising a flag with a cross on it is going to indicate that the city of Boston has now become a Christian city, and the city acknowledging Christianity as its official religion. We all know that the official religion of the city of Boston is humanism, atheism, humanism, that promotes abortion, homosexuality, Gender 21, and all the other things that humanists promote. And it's kind of ludicrous to suggest that if that flag is spot on that flagpole, oh my goodness, we're going to have the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, are going to personally fly out on Air Force One and arrest Mayor Walsh for allowing that flag to fly. No, it's not going to happen. The thing is, the kept mayor and the city council, they are simply bowing to the majority of the city. Today, it's secular. we're kind of outnumbered 5-1. Militant left runs the city and live in the city, and they think that's what they're catering to. Although it's interesting that college newspaper, Boston BU Press, went out in the street when this story broke back in September, asking people on the street, the average student, what do you think about this? And they said, who cares? Let them fly the flag. What's the big deal? And that's sort of probably most people, but not here in Boston. Not the mayor of Boston and the city council. It's interesting too. They're always trying to be on the outside. The city of Boston bucking the trend, and I didn't get one elected official didn't have the guts to contact me. Not one. The lady that I went through to try to get the permit did say to me that this isn't over, knowing that she couldn't understand why we couldn't get the permit. And but there is the culture. There is a culture of fear. You're not allowed to express your views if they're not in concert with the official city position. So anyway, a hearing was held. The lawsuit was formally filed in early July of this year, July 7th or 8th. And we had a hearing, and the hearing was basically asking for an injunction by the federal judge, who and our attorney Roger Banham did a great job of making the case. Cited a few precedents, not dealing with flags specifically. I don't think there's any case like this that has dealt with a flag. The city attorney, it was two, and there was a man who did most of all the speaking. He didn't do such a good job. He actually, in an offhand way, admitted that the speech has to be approved of by the city. Now, he did say that we could get a permit and bring flags with us and have whatever, but we just couldn't fly one. But because that flag represents speech, and it's not speech approved by the city, or something like that. But he's saying that the city approves of the speech of Communist China, the speech of Communist Cuba, the speech of the militant homosexuals who celebrate the riot and Stonewall at a ballroom in New York City with their rainbow flag, and the transgender people. And incidentally, it's illegal in Massachusetts to fly a flag on city, state, municipal property unless unless there's an official visitor from that country, and the governor has to have some resolution. But these are the kinds of things you can. Laws are on the books, but if they don't enforce them, what's the point? And when you have a law that you don't enforce, it kind of looks like we selectively choose what laws to enforce and what not to enforce. And this law, or whom to enforce it against. We will enforce it against you, but not against this group. Very selective, and that leads to turmoil, eventually anarchy. If people can just selectively, there are some bad laws on the books. If the flag law in Massachusetts is a bad law, let's repeal it. It was put there for a reason. It was passed by the House and Senate and signed by the governor at some point. I don't know when. And if it's a bad law, let's repeal it. But until we repeal it, it's on the books. Anyway, so we haven't heard back as I'm recording this. A few days before it airs, I haven't heard. But we're very excited. We actually think that it's going to generate a lot of interest. What we probably would have had just a handful of people at our little gathering, a dozen, maybe a couple of dozen. And I think and the average person wouldn't even give the flag a second notice. They would walk by and not even give it a second thought. If I said that this flag was the official Camp Constitution flag, which we could have said, it would have been an issue. They wouldn't have said, "Oh, okay, this is the flag." No, they don't know what it means. And what's ironic too is that the city of Boston, their official flag, and our attorney brought this out, has a verse from the Bible, and that's also the official on the city seal. The same, it's a verse from 1 Kings chapter 5. It's in Latin, so of course the average person can't read it, but it says something like, "May God favor us as He favored our forefathers." And you can walk through Boston's Common and Boston Public Garden and see all kinds of Christian references, quotes from the Bible, and things of that nature. So we have a very rich Christian history. But, of course, today it's now a secular humanist stronghold. But that doesn't mean we will not, we will have our say, and we're going to take a stand. And I think if more Christians did this, I think we would win this culture war. We wouldn't be losing almost by default, that somehow we can't express our views. You can express your views if you're a militant leftist all you want. You can, but if you want a job, and if you're a Christian or a conservative, Jewish conservative or what have you, you're not. You better be careful, or you might be fired. Like this poor baker in Colorado, after he won the Supreme Court case, U.S. Supreme Court ruled in his favor against making a cake for a homosexual. Now it's a transgender in the state of Colorado, being as a vicious, secular, humanistic state, cannot tolerate the idea of a baker who's a Christian that serves the public. But it's time, like I say, it's time to push back, and I don't mean push back in a violent way. We can speak up. We can. And lawsuits are not good things necessarily. They can be very expensive and time-consuming. But the law's there for us too. And biblically, we're not supposed to sue each other. We're not supposed to sue Christians. And in fact, all we're looking for is to raise the flag. We're not looking for any monetary damages, and that's usually if the city loses, they have to pay the Liberty Council's fees, which I think is the very least they should do. So again, we're not looking for $1 million settlement here. We just want to be able to exercise the same right that left-wing groups have in the city of Boston and in other parts of the country as well. So we'll stay tuned for this. You can learn more. Just visit our website. You go to Liberty Council's website. Just punch in Liberty Council, and you'll come. It should come up. I think it's lc.org. And for us, they have a lot of other. They're doing a lot of other things. They're phenomenal groups. Not a huge organization, and they rely, of course, on donations to be able to defend people, and they do a great job. So we encourage you to check them out too. Before you get a couple of minutes before the show ends, I just want to mention we have on our website we have our calendar. It's a little drop down. It says camp items, and then you see the calendar. We should put it on the front, or it should be prominent. But you'll see that there's activity on a regular basis, whether it be speaking at an event or having an information table at some venue, or our own speakers bureau. We have a regular speakers bureau. We hope that we'd like to get our people out as much as we can. In some cases, we will sponsor the event. Now, the end of August, I'll be up in Maine. In fact, I'll be going through Monticello. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to sit down with Alan for breakfast or lunch, the owner of this fine station. But I'll be giving some presentations on the deep state. It's interesting, too, the deep state. That term is accepted, but if you said the New World Order 10 to 15, 20 years ago, you would call it conspiracy theorists. But it's okay to say the deep state. So same thing, same entity. And I'll be giving presentations, in Waldoboro, Maine, on August 31st or 30th, Thursday at noontime. And all this information is up on our website. So if you're interested in I'd spend another half hour telling you about all the specifics of the places. But anyway, Thursday, the 30th, I'll be in Waldoboro at noontime in Lincoln, Maine, which is about 45 miles or 50 miles north of Bangor. I'll be in the evening giving a presentation, and then Friday night in Holton at a Chinese restaurant, a meeting room and a restaurant there, Tang's, 60 North Street, which is Route 1. And then Saturday, that would be September 1st, starting at 9 o'clock at the Presque Isle Recreation Center, I'll give a presentation on the deep state, and then Phil Merletti, my friend there and colleague, whom I'll be staying at his home for a night, he'll be giving one entitled The Maine Constitution and Oath Keeping, and then I'll return with a talk on the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. And then Sunday on September 2nd, 6:30, I'll be at the First Parish Congregational Church in Lebanon, Maine, talking about what is Camp Constitution, as we have some folks here. So anyway, you've been listening to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff, and until next week, may God richly bless you.